Hello, everybody. Hang on, I left my notes over here with the questions. I have a ton, 2 pages of questions today. So we have got a lot to cover. A couple things that we're going to talk about is once I find a house, how do I contact the owner? What if it's in an LLC's name? Do I keep going? Are there any books for lease options? What price range of house should I be looking at? Once the tenant buyer's in the house and they leave in 3 months, what happens to the payments? Are we under a legal obligation to keep making the payments? What's the difference between a lease option and an assignment? How much credit in the non-refundable option fee goes towards the purchase price? Would I get more mortgages if people were forced into credit repair? How does land make money? Do I need a license? If I have a license, do I tell people that I have a license? Should I follow leads that are not in my market? How do I find sellers? Do I need a CRM? How do you evict someone who doesn't pay their lease and claims equitable title? And I'd like your program. Where's the link? Oh, we got a lot to talk about today, guys. So if any of these questions were your questions, I will get to them. Jason will be with me in just a couple minutes. He had to go get me a drink of water. And we'll answer all of them the best we can, as quickly as we can. I've got a hard stop at 2, and we'll pick up where we left off. All right, so let's buzz through these as quickly as we can. All right, let's say that you find a house and it's empty and there's not a phone number, there's not a for sale by owner sign in the front yard that says real easily, here, call me, right? Well, there's lots of different ways that we can find the owner. One thing that I suggest is if you're driving for dollars and you find an empty house, get out and put a yellow letter on the door. Tape it to the door, tape it to the car that's there. Get out of your car, as long as you're in a safe neighborhood, of course. One thing about getting out and putting something on the house that says, hey, I want to buy this, call me, is if the sellers happen to drive by, they may see that there's a note and they may get it. Also, though, if you're out of your car and you're putting a note on the house that says, hey, I want to buy this, some neighbors, some nosy neighbors might see that you want to, thanks, Ben, that you are trying to find out where the seller is. Driving for dollars is awesome, especially if you can talk to some of the neighbors and say, hey, what's the deal with that house? Do you have the seller's phone number? Are you Facebook friends with them? How can I get in contact with this seller? I'd really like to buy their house. All right, all of that will help you get towards a phone number. You can write down the address, and then when you get home, you can look at them with tax rolls and send them a letter. You can do that. You can send, if the house is here and there's a neighbor on each side, there's a house across the street, and there's 2 neighbors on that side, you could send a letter to all 6 of those houses that says, hey, I want to buy 123 Main Street. Do you have anybody's information? All right. You can get super nosy, and you can, once you look up the tax roll and you see that Susie Smith owns it, you can try to find Susie Smith on Facebook. Good luck finding Susie Smith. But you might have a good, kind of weird name, and you could find them on Facebook. There's lots of different ways. You could use a skip trace program. I don't. I do things pretty old and slow and regular, and I would send letters to all the neighbors before I would hire a skip trace program. Okay, do you want to sit down? Next question. If I find a house, can you scoot towards me? Because I've got that camera propped up on that. Thanks. If you find a house and it's in an LLC's name, should we try to contact the owner or not? Well, if it's in an LLC's name, I would say keep going with it. Try to, talk to the seller, especially if you're new. Practice talking to sellers. You don't know that, maybe just because it's in an LLC's name, it doesn't mean that, that person would like to sell. And maybe they'd like to sell this house and 8 other houses. This might be an amazing lead. Or it might be an LLC because they're going to buy it and keep it forever and ever, amen. We don't know until we ask them. So if it's in an LLC's name, I would still try to contact them and say, hey, what's up? Or you can do a reverse search and look up the LLC on your Secretary of State's website, find out who owns it, get their phone number. If they have one LLC, they might have a bunch of other LLCs, and you might be able to get their phone number and say, hey, I saw you were the property owner at 123 Main Street. I'd be interested in buying it. Is this something you would like to get off your books? I don't know until I find out from them. They may say, you know, yeah, I would. Or they may say, don't ever call me again. I don't know until I try, right? Next question. Are there any books for lease options? I'm sure there are some books from lease options. I haven't read any books on lease options because I am a auditory. I need to hear somebody say it to me. Sometimes it's nice to have a book to go along with, but to my knowledge, there is not a book out there that says step 1, 2, 3, 4, boom, you did a lease option. Ron LeGrand does have a lot of books on lease options. I'm in one of them. The less I do, the more I make. So if you want to, I would order that one because I'm there. Yay. I don't know if anybody else. Wendy Patton has books on lease options. I tried to read one of those and I couldn't. I'm sure there are books on lease options, but when this question got asked, I said that I was going to block off December. By the way, I'm going to block off December to write a book on lease options so that people have a step-by-step way to do it. Cool?
Yeah, if you're going to do step-by-step, you'll be the only one in the marketplace, too.
Cool.
I mean,
so
there's a lot of
the
people
book's
out
coming in December.
You know, there's a lot of books out there that get really detailed into little niches and stuff, right? Like, you know, how to make money on apartments, but maybe only focusing on small apartments and things like that. Most of those give really good information. I'm not saying don't do that. Most of them are not going to be specific enough that you can follow a step-by-step guideline or checklist or anything like that. They're going to walk you through the process to get you familiar with it. Probably not going to dive really deep into that. As a matter of fact, a lot of people use them as like marketing tools. You know, you'll hear people on radio say, you know, call now and I'll give you my free book. And it's, you know, introduce you to the concept. So if you're just getting started and you don't understand things like that, great. You know, free information, stuff like that, or inexpensive information, it's good. It's probably not going to give you as detail, but it may, you know, give you the appetite that lets you know that, you know, you want more, need more, or at least get started.
If you need more free information, I have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/Whitney Nicely, and there's lots of free lease option information there. What price range house should I be looking for? I don't know. All right, I've got an exercise on how to find your honey hole. And in that exercise, we kind of work through a bell chart of where you need to be in the spectrum. But I can't tell everybody that they need to be around 150 because in your market, there may be nothing available for 150. You may be in a market where everything is 350. But if I tell people to go for 350 houses, you might be in a market where there isn't anything for 350. So I can't give you a number until I know more about your market, all right? Until you go through the honey hole exercise and I know, you know, where are jobs and where is the county going to be expanding in the next couple of years and what is the median home price in your area. I mean, I need to know more before I just tell you what price to go with. Normally, when you go to buy a house, you go to a mortgage broker and they say, okay, congratulations, you're pre-approved for $145,000. You may look at houses for $145,000. I can't do that because when we talk about lease options, there's nobody there that tells me how much I qualify for. I'm going out to help sellers. That's my goal, is to help sellers and then find buyers who want that house, that will be pre-approved and want to buy that house and move in and live there forever. I am a real estate matchmaker. I find sellers who have a problem. I find buyers who aren't pre-approved right now, but they can and will be shortly. All right, so I can't tell you what price range to go for because I need more information. Okay. I can work you through the honey hole exercise, but that's a horse for a different day. Do you have anything on that?
Yeah, and it's different styles, right? I mean, you kind of play in whatever it needs, right? I mean, it could be anywhere from here to there, right? It's just yours is based on motivation. I have a little bit of different approach, especially if I'm going to do like a, direct mail campaign, yellow letters or something like that. I would go more to the Department of Labor for your county or the Planning Commission and try to find out, what Whitney said earlier. Where are the jobs? I mean, if most of the jobs in your area are blue collar jobs and they're, 60 to $70,000, those people aren't buying $300,000 or $400,000 houses. So it's probably going to say that in that area, most of your houses are probably going to be in the, $100 to $150,000 range. It just kind of depends. The other thing may be, hey, if you're in California, it doesn't matter. There's nothing. You can't buy a shack for $150,000. So, the biggest thing is find your market and stuff. I in my corporate world, I had a team of people in LA that worked for me, and when I found out that based on what we were paying them, that most of those people had a $500,000 or $600,000 house, I had no idea how they would make it. I still don't know how people make that work on $100,000 and less salaries. I still don't understand how that happens. Maybe they just spend less money than I do. I don't know. But just know your market, and then it becomes a personal decision, right? Whitney doesn't put any boundaries on it. She just wants the motivated seller, and it could be a $500,000 house, be a $50,000 house. She doesn't put limits on it. Just has to be vacant, right, babe?
Not listed and not behind on payments.
There you go. That's your three. You just have to decide what your criteria is.
Okay. If we put a tenant buyer in the house, what happens if they leave in 3 months? Well, I want you to understand that the mental attitude, fortitude, capabilities, the mental stance from a tenant buyer is like totally different than a regular renter. Okay? And a tenant buyer that has moved into this house, we have screened them a lot harder than if we just had regular renters in this house. I know everything but their underwear color by the time they move in. And I know their motivation. I know how many months, if they do what we tell them to do, how many months it's going to take them to get the mortgage and cash out this deal. These are not going to be people, for the most part, you might get a wacko, but these are not going to be people that are going to up in the middle of the night and leave after 3 months. They have too much invested. They have too much pride. They have too much hope in this property to just up and leave in 3 months. All right? Tenant buyers put down $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $40,000, $100,000 in some markets. Not my market, but in some markets. The most I've ever had is somebody gave me $40,000 to move in one time. But they put down big lumps of money. And they're going to lose that money if and when they walk away. They're not of the mindset to just up and leave in 3 months. They are working every time they get a chance to pay down their purchase price, to improve the property, to, do anything and everything that I need and ask them to do. Because this is the only way they're going to get out of their mom's basement. This is the only way that they're going to be able to actually buy a house. This is the only way that they're going to get out of whatever situation it's going to be. This is the only way that they're going to be able to buy a house because they had a bankruptcy or a foreclosure or something in their history, or they've got, just all sorts of things. These aren't the people that are just going to up and leave. But what happens if they do up and leave? Because we signed a lease option that said that we were going to make these payments for 5 years. And then we found somebody else that came in and started making these payments for us, right? Well, if you put a tenant buyer in a house, and let's say they give you $10,000 to move in and your payment is $1,000, but they pay you $1,200 a month, if they give you $10,000 and they stay for 3 months, that means they made those payments for 3 months, right? But you still have $10,000 of their dollars. So that should float you for 10 months until you can find another tenant buyer to get in there. Okay? If you get this $10,000 and you go to Vegas, then yeah, you're going to have to come out of pocket on that 4th month to make that payment, unless you've already found another tenant buyer to go in there. If you agree that you're going to make somebody's payment for the next 5 years, you have the option, you have the right, you have the ability to find somebody to come in and make those payments for you. But if you just, decide you don't feel like finding somebody to go in, you still have to fulfill your obligation. Okay, you said you were going to do this, and there's no way you're going to hit 100 houses if you start screwing people over in the beginning. Now that is when you do a sandwich lease option. So you bought it with a lease option and you sold it with a lease option. If you buy it with a lease option and you decide to assign it over to a tenant buyer, you can take an assignment fee and get out of the middle, and you let the buyer and the seller work it out amongst themselves, and you can walk away. And then if in 3 months they decide they don't want to make the payments, they can have you come back in and find somebody else to do the deal again. And that's the biggest difference between a lease option and an assignment. In an assignment, you set it up and get out. In a sandwich lease option, you stay in and you float the payment.
One thing people ask me all the time, because we talk about that, and people say, why wouldn't you just do that every single time? Well, you could. The problem is, with lease options, we talk about 3 payments, right? We get a non-refundable option fee up front. We get monthly cash over what we have to pay the seller.
In this example, it was only $200. I was paying $1,000 and they were paying me $1,200. I was making $200 a month. But if you got 10 houses and you're making $200 a month, there's an extra $2,000 a month coming in.
And then we get paid in the end when it closes, right?
Yep.
If you do the assignment fee, it is a one-hit wonder, a one-trick pony, whatever you want to talk about. It's just like, it's almost like wholesaling, right? You get paid and then you move on. And some people do that. In certain deals, it may make sense for you to do that.
And in my first 14 deals, I signed like 11 or 12 of them. I did not stay in the middle. If I'd stayed in on all of those deals, I'd have 30 houses instead of 19. I'd be making, I don't even know, I can't do that math that fast, but I'd be making a lot more money if I had stayed in on that deal. That's the difference in lease options and assignments.
Okay, so somebody just commented.
Wait, we've got a whole list. We'll have to get to that one in a second.
All right, sorry.
Okay, so how much credit do we give towards the purchase price? Again, I can't answer this for you. That depends on your house, what you need, how much you're paying out for, marketing and support and anything like that, how much you're wanting to get paid on these deals. I could say that you need at least 10% down when they move in. Your option fee needs to be at least 10% of the purchase price. And you can let all of that go towards the purchase price at closing. You have the choice to let none of that go to the purchase price at closing. You could let half of it go to the purchase price at closing. I'll tell you what I do is the first $5,000 that they put down, that's my money. That does not go towards the purchase price, and it doesn't matter how expensive or how cheap the house is. The first $5,000 goes in my pocket. That's my money. If you give me $20,000, then $5,000 goes straight to me, does not go towards your purchase price, but $15,000 of it will go to your purchase price when you close. All $20,000 of it is required up front and is a non-refundable option fee. So if you don't enact, I don't have to give it back. It's not a security deposit. It's a non-refundable option fee. With that, it's up to you. If you're selling $1 million house and they're giving you $100,000 up front, I would take more than $5,000. I would do maybe half. But this is up to you. This is up to you. This is your business. This is your strategy. This is what you need. And it depends on what all you have going on. Don't forget that too. And make sure, though, it's a good deal. Maybe you do, maybe they give you $10,000 and you get $5,000 Maybe you told your seller you'd give them $1,000. All right, then give your seller $1,000. Make sure that when you give them that, you get $1,000 off your purchase price. Oh, look, I had a hair, baby. And that way you get 10,000, 5,000 goes in your HIP, National Bank, 1,000 of it goes to your seller. There's still 4,000 that you still get. All right, you get all of it. But maybe that's how you're going to end up giving your seller some money. It all depends. I can't tell you exactly how much to give towards the purchase price at closing. You need to make sure that it's a win-win-win for your seller, for your buyer, and for you. If you're trying to screw people out of option fees and not give them any money on their purchase price, you probably won't do a lot of deals. What kind of credit you give them is totally up to you. You might have an 80-20 rule. You might do 75-25. You might do 50-50. You might say that the first 8,000 is mine. You might say, the first 20,000 is mine. I don't know. That's up to you. But you got to work that out, and it's got to be very clearly labeled in your contract. Okay. Do I think that I would get more people to get a mortgage if I forced them into credit repair? Now, I don't like to force anybody to do anything except for him.
I was fixing to say, whoa, that's good news.
Every rule has an exception, and it's you.
Anybody, whoever's recording this, I want it. Oh, you're recording it. Yeah. She'll probably delete it, so y'all keep it out there.
Okay, but I don't like to force my sellers into a lease option. I present them 3 offers. I prefer the lease option. Maybe I put a cherry on top on the lease option, but they usually go with the lease option that I present. Okay, one of the lease options that I present. I do not force my tenant buyers into credit repair. It's in their best interest to get credit repair, but I don't tell them which company they have to use. They sign an addendum with me that says they will have credit repair, but I cannot force them into credit repair. I can encourage them. I can strongly suggest to them, but I cannot force anybody to do anything that they don't want to do. All that's going to do is put more resistance on them wanting to do what they agreed to. These people are highly motivated to get the mortgage until they're not. Okay? And as Jason said earlier, when I do these sandwich lease options, I get paid 3 different ways. Okay? I get the non-refundable option fee, I get the monthly income on top of my mortgage payment that's going out, and I get that back end payday. I may be getting, if I bought the house for $100 and it's worth $130 and I sold it to them for $135, there's $30,000 or $35,000 that I'm going to get in the end. It's to my best interest for them to get a mortgage, but I still can't force them to get credit repair and get that mortgage. They signed a document, a legal contract that says that they will do that, but I cannot force them to do it. Now, you might want to set up your company where somebody is on your staff and you babysit them and you check on every pay stub and you check on everything that you do. That might be what you want to do, but I'm a one-woman show for the most part on the houses. My job is to keep finding sellers and keep finding tenant buyers and then telling the tenant buyers what they need to do and expecting them to be an adult and do what they say they want to do, what they're gonna do, okay? I cannot follow them around every week and make sure that they're doing exactly what they should be. Maybe I would have more back-end paydays if I forced them to get credit repair. As it stands, if and when they leave, I find somebody else that gives me another $10,000 or $15,000 down, pays my balance down again, so now that I probably owe $90,000, they're still buying it for $100,000. So the next person that comes through, I'm going to make $40,000 on.
And some people have a problem with that, guys. I mean, I've talked to people before that were interested in doing lease options, and they said, well, I'm just not going to do that. If somebody were to change their mind, I'm going to give them their money back. You can do that, or you can not, or you can let that prevent you from using this method, to buy with none of your own money and things like that. My thing is, we are extremely transparent. They are told multiple times about the terms. This is not any shady fine print on the contract. Everybody knows, walk through the steps. Whitney had them sign the paperwork earlier this week.
I saw the house this week.
I had to sit there, twiddling my thumbs. Actually, I was playing on my phone, but, for about an hour as you walked them through, because they kept saying,
initial here.
All right, initial here.
Sign
and everything was explained to them. And a lot of people don't understand that. Me, I think adults are adults. And if you enter into the agreement and we have an agreement, that's the agreement. I mean, I got a bike hanging in my garage right now that my fat ass won't get on. And, I can't go back and say, hey, guys, I've changed my mind. I didn't ride the thing. It's been 2 years. Can I just have my money back? They're not going to give me my money back. They're going to be, we shouldn't have bought the bike, you idiot. So that's just the way we operate. That doesn't mean that's the way that you have to operate. It doesn't mean that you can't. If you have somebody that backs out and you took $10,000 from them and you still got that sitting in the bank account and you decide you want to give $5,000 back because you feel sorry for them, nothing legally says that you can't do that. It's just not in our business model, because here's the thing. Once you've done that once,
yes,
you have set a precedent.
Yes.
And then once you've set that precedent, there could potentially down the road be
yes,
legal ramifications for doing that. So
yes,
if you're going to do that, just a word of caution, it can open up risk. My opinion, you're always best to follow the letter of the law, which is your contract.
And I have an attorney write every contract so that I make sure it's exactly the same, or as close to exactly the same, or as close to exactly following the same law, as the one before, so that I don't have any, I'll just make an exception. No. That's not what we do. That's not how we play. All right. So how does land make money?
Oh, God.
Ding, ding, ding.
I saw the question and I was like, oh, here we go. We're going to go on this one.
I love land, all right? And I started buying land because I could find it cheap. I could wrap my head around just buying it with cash. And it looked very, honestly, risk-free because it's just grass and trees. There's not any overhead. People want to say, well, what if somebody puts a hole in your sheetrock? I got grass and trees. There's no sheetrock. There's no plumbing. There's no air conditioner. There's nothing there but grass and trees. All right. So the first piece of property that I bought that allowed me to vote 100 years ago because I owned land was 1.07 acres in a failed subdivision in Decatur, Tennessee. And I bought it at an auction, at a foreclosure auction. At the end of the year, December, a local bank was trying to get rid of a bunch of bad mortgages that they had. I paid $1,200 for it, $1,200. When we got to closing, there was something on the paperwork that said something about $69,000, and I was like, hold up, wait a minute, I didn't pay $69,000. They said, no, the person that had it before you had it financed for $69,000. And I was like, so you mean I could sell this thing for $69,000? And they said, well, maybe not right now, but, probably eventually. I found out that my neighbors in this subdivision, the cheapest one had sold for cash for $39,000, and I have $1,200 invested in equal shares rights. And actually, this piece, I was number 12 or number 13, lot 12 or 13, and the first 20 came with a deeded boat slip. All right, this is on a river in Decatur, Tennessee. When I bought it, I didn't even know we had a Decatur, Tennessee. I was just completely trying to figure out what I was doing. But I love land. Second piece of land that I bought, what?
For those of you that have the book bundle and haven't opened it yet, it is in the She Conquered book. In depth.
Good plan.
I love
Good plug,
that.
babe.
I love that story.
If you need the book bundle, I'm having some issues with ClickFunnels, but you can go to whitneynicely.com/boss. And you'll get the book bundle. It's 2 books, a button, and 2 lead sheets. Okay, but the second piece of land that I bought, I was at another auction. This was an absolute auction, though, not a foreclosure auction. And it was an online absolute auction, and my final bid was like $1,200 on this piece of half-acre land. By the time it was all done, I won. After I paid the auctioneer's fees, closing costs, taxes, title, all that jazz, I was like $1,500 into a half-acre piece of industrial land. All right, $1,500, half-acre industrial land in the city of Knoxville, and I turned around. What?
Before you go any further, if we were rating land in terms of a hierarchy, right, and we've got residential, we've got commercial, things like that, what is the most desirable land that you want to have?
Okay, so it's a pyramid, right? And I say that the bottom of the pyramid, and I just made this up, so you can check this somewhere if you want to. This is my pyramid. The bottom of the pyramid is agricultural land, because when, who was it, Christopher Columbus discovered us, everything was agricultural, right? And then we started building houses, and then we started building businesses, and then we started doing industrial. So at the top of the pyramid is industrial, then commercial, residential, and agricultural land. I wrote this up in a newspaper article in your hometown, remember?
Yeah, I do. Which is primarily farming. Not sure it went over very well to say, hey, all this stuff y'all got down here is at the bottom of the pyramid, but she did it, so yeah.
Whatever. The top of the pyramid is industrial land. It's usually the most expensive land that you can buy. It demands the highest rent. It demands the highest sales, the highest taxes, whatever. I bought a half-acre piece of industrial land for $1,500 in the city of Knoxville. Turned around, a couple different things happened, but I ended up calling my neighbor next door, who's a Fortune 500 company, and said, hey, you're driving on my driveway. I want some rent if you're going to drive on my driveway. And they basically said, no, little real estate girl, that's not possible. And I said, okay, have it surveyed and let me know. 2 weeks later, they called back and they said, yes, Miss Nicely, we have recently had our land surveyed and we are driving on your driveway. We would like to rent that from you. I said, well, how much? And they said, we'll give you $250 a month. I said, okay, that's fine, but I've had this land for like 6 months and I want you to pay back rent for the whole time that I've owned it. And they said, okay. I said, and I want you to pay my property taxes, like $50 a year. Okay. And I said, and I want you to be in charge of all the maintenance there. So if your trucks create a pothole, I want you to get the gravel to fill it. They said, okay. So I negotiated a triple net lease, kind of on accident, by using very regular words. And in 6 months, when I got my money back, I was basically full on my investment. Now we still rent the driveway, and I rent the half acre for $500. So I get $750 a month on an initial $1,500 investment in land. Every time I tell that story, I wish sometimes I just kept buying land.
Well, it's good, but land is trickier, right? You know, land is one of those things that can be a good investment. Your lot indicator is eventually one day going to have a good ROI, right? Because that area is starting to build again, maybe 5 years before they get back to it, but they will build there again. When you got $1,200 in it, it doesn't take much to.
It's not lunch money.
Increase, but land is sometimes more of a buy and hold strategy, and
buy it and forget it.
I got really intrigued about land a couple of years ago. We were looking at a property at the tax sale. We were actually looking at some abandoned storage units, and we were thinking about buying that property, and then there was some land next to it, and we were thinking about buying that as well, and we said, that can just be an expansion, because the ones that were there didn't have any cooled units, and we said, maybe we need some climate control storage, as well. So we actually partnered with one of the probably most archaic but smartest investors in Knoxville. So he was at the tax sale with us, and we're sitting there, and we're going through it, and the bid got up to kind of where we were at, and we all kind of looked at each other like, oh shit, what are we going to do now? And so we were all like, screw it. So we raised our hand, we went on up, and it finally got to a point where we were like, no, we're not going to do anymore. And it kept going, y'all. It was two people, and it kept going and going. And then what I noticed was when we got to the lot next to it, which was about 5 properties down, the same guy bought it, and it went for way more than what we had thought. And I was like, what does he know that we don't know? So I don't have any shame. We just went up and asked him, what do you know that we don't know? He said, well, I happen to know that Lowe's is sniffing. They got a bird dog up here, and I know the guy's been working, and he is trying to buy the property across the street, and the vision is to eventually, expand that road, make it into a 4-lane highway, and all that kind of stuff. So long story short, we went that way to the lake this summer. There's road construction everywhere. Lowe's did buy and has built their building. The guy sold part of it to Wendy's. I don't remember who bought the other part there, and then somebody bought and demolished the storage units. So that's one of those things where I'm sure the guy made a killing. But he is one of the, he has some pretty deep pockets. So he was able to do that. He was able to pay cash, and he was able to buy and actually hold that for his investment. Not everybody's able to do that. So land, is a tricky thing. But Whitney's thing was, I'm going to invest $1,500 in it, and if I have to sit on it, I have to sit on it. That amount's not going to make or break me. And with the one there where you're renting the driveway and stuff, oh my gosh, I mean that's
Well, the other thing is the land that I bought. Okay, so that lot that I bought in the subdivision, that was residential, and it's a buy it and forget it. $1,200. I think I pay $300 a year for somebody to mow it. Like, it's not gonna break me. All right. It was residential, but my plan is, in however long it takes, I'll make some money. All right. And my next lot was industrial. I specifically wanted it because it was industrial. This land that Jason's talking about that we went to the tax sale for, we went because it was commercial. It was zoned right. It was good. All right. So if you just have a couple lots, if you keep finding empty lots, I don't know that that's always a good deal. I put up a post in the student group 2 Sundays ago. Somebody hit me up on Facebook and they're like, hey, we have a lot. It's at this address. I want $6,000. And I said, I'll give you $500. And they were like, oh, no, I can't take $500. And I was like, why? That's all it's worth? I'm not giving you $6,000 just because that's what you want. Ain't happening. Not from this one. All right. So you can buy land as an investment. I like to buy land cheap. You can also, though, sell it on owner financing. We could buy land. If there's a big plot of land, like their trailer park over here right now is just a basic plot of land. He wants a whole lot of money for it, but he's willing to owner finance it. So if you have a plot of land, you could owner finance it.
Okay. We normally don't talk about our prospective deals, but that's okay. I'll give you a pass this time.
Okay.
I'm excited. Always ordered a trailer park.
Do I need a license to buy houses? No.
You want the real answer, or you want what everybody or I thought? Whitney's a lot younger than me. I'm 42. I know I don't look it. I know y'all are probably shocked, right? Wow.
Small man.
I mean, no joke. Up until 7 or 8 years ago, I thought you needed a license if you were going to do real estate. Well, not to buy your own home, but if you're going to flip houses or whatever, the first thing I probably would have done would have been go out and get my license, because that's what we're trained to believe, right? We're trained to believe. When I talked to Whitney, we were talking about some different stuff, and we were talking about some concepts with that. And she's like, yeah, I didn't know that. And I'm like, how did you not know that? She goes, when you go to real estate school, they're more interested in teaching you about how many square feet are in an acre than they are about stuff that you're actually going to use. She said, it's kind of like, some of the stuff you learn in grade school and stuff. May not need to know all of that stuff. So, just because, but we're all led to believe, right, that that's what you need, is you need that in the classroom training.
I also put it like this. Do you need a license to cut hair?
As a business?
There we go.
Yes.
Do you need a license to fish?
Yes, in most states, unless it's your private land. Some have a what do you call it? Workaround or a.
Do you need a license to drive a car?
Yes, absolutely.
I disagree with all of those. If I wanted to cut my own hair right now, I could cut my own hair. If I wanted to go fish, I could put a fish on a hooker in the water, or I put a worm on a hooker in the water and catch a fish. If I wanted to drive a car, I was 13 on the road driving a car, no license.
That one wasn't legal though, but whatever.
Technically, none of them are legal. I was 6. I caught a fish. I didn't even have a worm on my hooker. I just had the hooker in the water, and I got a fish. Got him in his eye. If you want to buy houses, you do not need a license. Somebody somewhere has decided that they want to know who is representing the public or working on the public's hair, or maybe catching too many fish, or they want to be able to keep track of who has a driver's license. Those are all government things. Yeah. Okay? That they use to track us. But if you decide you want to go buy a house, what Jason said was absolutely perfect. If you're buying your own house, you don't need a license. If you want to represent other people buying and selling houses, you need a license. If you want to buy and sell your own, you can do that without a license. And getting a license will not help you be an investor. Next question is, if I have a license, do I tell sellers that I have a license? Oh yeah, you have to disclose that, okay? But you don't have to walk around going, warning, warning everybody, I have a license and I will use it. You don't have to walk in and say, hi, I have a real estate license. I am a licensed realtor, and you will have to sign off on a paper that says that you know I have a license. You don't have to do that either. Okay? You don't have to have a tag on your car that says realtor. You don't. All you got to say is, you know, hey, I'm interested in this house. Yeah, I got a license. Not a big deal. I'm not trying to list it. I actually buy houses. If you treat it like no big deal, because it's really no big deal, they will think it's no big deal. If you try to get around not telling them, it's just not good. All right? What else did you try to not tell them? It's not good. Tell them. But don't go, I have to warn you, I have a license. You don't have to. You just have to throw it in the conversation. Okay? So, should I follow leads that are not in my market? I say yes. I say any lead could be the potential for the best lead of your life. But if you say, oh, no, I'm not interested, maybe you just killed a great possibility. All right? Especially in the beginning. In the beginning, y'all are doing the Facebook challenge right now, and leads are coming in, they're coming in, and they're coming, you know, from way back home, and you don't really want anything back home. Call and follow up. All right? I want you to practice talking to these sellers. I want you to practice being on the phone with them. And the people that sent you these leads, they will like the closure of knowing that you followed up. If they do find something that you're interested in, if you didn't follow up, they're not going to send you another lead and another lead and another lead. Okay? You're right now training your people to send you leads. Very slowly, very, you know, in the back of their mind, are you training them? But if they find out that they sent you 5 and you didn't call on any of them, why would they send you 5 more? Until you get to a point where you say, I want this zip code and that zip code, and I don't want anything else, that's different. Right now, I want you calling on everything. If you get a lead on a hot off-market property with a motivated seller, there's 700 people in this group. We have somebody probably in every state. We have some people that live out of the country. Okay? If you get a lead and it's not where you are, you better bring that puppy back in here and say, y'all, I need help. I've got a really good lead. This is going to be good. I need some boots on the ground in Georgia or in Arkansas or in California, wherever it is. All right? We'll work together to make it happen. Follow the leads. Follow what's coming to you. All right, because if you shut down one, that's going to get you in a practice of shutting them down. I don't want you to be picky right now. I want you to follow all the leads. They're all good leads. And even if, you talk to somebody, if you're in Tennessee and you talk to somebody in Missouri, and it turns out that one's not a good one, just by taking the time and following that lead, I probably made somebody in Tennessee happy, and I might have talked to somebody in Missouri who knew somebody else back in Tennessee who had a lead. Everybody you talk to is a lead source. But if you decide not to follow on a lead, you just killed a lead source. Not like actually killed a person though, just like stopped the process. So yes, follow leads if they're not in your market until you get picky. When you get picky, then we can talk. All right, how do I find sellers? Well, right now we're doing a 7-day lead challenge, and it's to start getting those leads flowing in. I teach 7 different ways to find sellers. Getting the button, if you get the book bundle, it's got a button in it, and you'll collect sellers from there. You can look in the newspaper, Craigslist, Zillow. You can mail yellow letters. You can do bandit signs. You can drive for dollars. You can do tax sales. You can talk to probate people. Maybe I have 9 or 10 different ways. There's lots of ways to find sellers, and we don't have enough time in the day to cover all of that today. But we will get through all of it eventually. Now, do I need a CRM? No. Jason, you want to handle this one?
Yeah, I don't initially no. If you eventually, get to the point where you want to put a business on autopilot and you want to grow to the point where this becomes a well-oiled machine and you're going to hire an army of people that are sitting there, you're going to have a team of VAs that are going to man your phones that you have personally trained, then absolutely. But, I did a video the other day that said, one of the first things I did when I decided I wanted to get in real estate was, I set up a company and I got business cards and I got a website. And I told you I thought in my mind I should have been focusing that attention on, finding sellers and stuff. One of the other biggest mistakes that I made is I wanted to grow really fast. So I decided that I was going to drop not 50, not 100 yellow letters. Why don't we go big or go home, baby? I'm going to do 1,000. So we dropped 1,000 yellow letters in the mail at one time. And I couldn't answer all the calls. So we had anticipated that it might be a little bit more volume than we thought. We had a special Google phone number set up, so that we could track which ones were coming from the yellow letters, things like that. But we weren't able to really train the VAs. So they were taking down very, very basic information. And if a seller's motivated and they call a number back, they want to speak to somebody that knows at least a little bit. I mean, they don't have to be you, but they need to be able to speak the language and at least kind of outline the process that you would go through. Not just take a name and number and call back. That didn't work out very well. So, my advice is don't try to get, as my grandma would say, don't get too big for your britches. Start small.
We're real Southern.
Start small and, learn to do this yourself. Even if you eventually start to outsource some of this stuff to third parties and things like that, you're going to need to know how it works and you're going to need to know how to do it. So don't skip that. You need to talk to all of your seller leads in the beginning. It's going to teach you the process. You're going to educate yourself. And then if the point in time does come, you want to turn it over to somebody else, you'll know how to train them.
The other thing is I have a problem with the CRM in the beginning because you're trying to learn a whole bunch of stuff. And the last thing I want to do is bog you down in some technology that you don't understand. When you get the book bundle or you sign up for a group coaching, I'll send you lead sheets, okay? I'll send you stuff so that you can put a pen to paper because we all know how to fill out this form. All right. And guys, when I started, I went through a lot of lead sheets. All right. These are all no's. These are all no's. All right. talked to a bunch of sellers. I filled out a lot of lead sheets. I got a bunch of no's, and I still have this sitting around. We went through here the other day and decided we should call back on some of these. I'm just not a techie kind of person. I also included in the group coaching, so I've got this lead sheet, and this was my original lead sheet. I do not like this one. I've gone through 2 other versions now. But on this lead sheet, the new one that I developed has an Excel sheet that goes with it. So even if you do want a CRM, but you don't want to get some fancy thing or whatever, but you want to log it, like Jason likes Excel. So what I have is the lead sheet is in a PDF. You can print it, or I'm going to mail you a couple. But you can also have Excel. And if you want to start tracking stuff in a CRM-like program, I would suggest starting with Excel. Here's the tough one. How do you evict someone who doesn't pay their lease and claims equitable title? Okay, well, how do you evict someone? You call your attorney. Do I smell?
No, fly.
You call your attorney and say, hey, 2225 Center Circle didn't pay. I need you to send them an eviction letter. And they will say, okay, fine. I'll send it to you to review, sign it, and I'll send it off.
Easy peasy.
That's how I evict people. I go to court and I get, my feathers all ruffled up. But overall, Evan does all the work for me. But what if they claim equitable title? Well, in the contracts that I have that Evan, my attorney, prepares for me on every deal that I do, it says in there that they cannot claim equitable title. They don't have the right to equitable title. And they would have to prove equitable title, and their contract says they can't. So that one stops right there. All right, final question, and I've been getting this one a lot.
I got one more today.
Okay, well, let's do it.
I got something from somebody, and they were even reluctant to join the group, and they said, I didn't want to reach out to Whitney because I didn't know if I could even talk to her. Now, they were talking about speak the language,
Oh.
I guess they think I'm more of a nice guy. I don't know. Anyway, so, they said, I don't know how to get started, right? And so I very, politely sent back, and I said, here's the deal, okay? And this is somebody I know from my past, too, so that made it a little bit easier. I said, we try to overcomplicate things, but it really is very basic. The first thing I got to be able to do is I've got to find properties and talk to sellers. If I can't ever get anything under contract, it doesn't matter what kind of contract, ironclad I've got.
What kind of buyer's list I have. Oh,
yeah.
Gosh.
It doesn't matter.
I got in a fight about that yesterday with the wholesaler.
None of that matters until I can get something under contract. So before I get it under contract, I got to have leads, and I think that's where
lots of them.
And I've talked about this before. This is where a lot of people mess up. Celebrate the small victories.
Absolutely.
The first thing you have to do is generate leads. When you get leads, celebrate those.
Woo!
There are going to be some discouraging moments and a little bit of disappointment when some of those initially in the beginning don't turn out. But you're going to get over it, and you're going to learn that that's just part of it, okay? Once you get the leads coming in, then the next milestone is to actually get somebody to agree to your terms. I'm not even talking about on paper.
The next one would be to get an appointment.
Okay, good point.
And then get a bunch of appointments and leave offers there and make offers there. And then eventually, if you make enough offers, somebody's going to sign something.
So I eventually finally, convinced this person that we had a roadmap, and this is kind of the roadmap you need to follow. So everything was good, and then 16 minutes later, because I looked from the time I sent it or whatever, I got a response that said, I wouldn't even know what to say to somebody if they wanted to buy a property. So I told him, I said,
I know how to fix that.
I can fix that really, really, really easy. We have the seller lead sheet, guys. And eventually you'll know that like the back of your hand, and information will just flow. But when you're starting off, you're not programmed that way. You're not thinking about that. And it really does. It gives you the pertinent information that you need to ask, the questions you need to ask, kind of the order you need to ask them in to get the flow, and you'll get all of the information that you need to know from that person. So it'll guide you through the conversation, and it gives you a vehicle to actually do this. So the funny thing is, so I kind of forwarded him. I said, hey, here's what you need, right? So I sent him the link or whatever, and he came back. He goes, this is $47. I said, yeah, it's $47. You're getting 2 books, you're getting a button, and you're getting the lead sheets. I said, you know, the books and stuff are good. You read them or whatever. I said, but the value here is these lead sheets. I said, these lead sheets by themselves are worth more than $47. If you had to take the time to go build this yourself, it would take you,
3 years.
Well, it would take time. How much is your time worth? It's already done there. So anyway, there's some more convincing. But the thing is, at the end of the day, I said, look, we're outlining this. It's a small investment. Do you really want to get started? Because if not, then I can tell you we've got knowledge here. I've got all this stuff. You can join the group. But if you're not willing to spend that money to get started, you're probably really not serious about getting started right now, right? So set your goals and map them out and say, listen, by X date, my plan is to have seller leads. And then by X date, I need to have this. If you aren't hitting those targets, I promise you, you're not doing something right. And that's the purpose of the group. The group is here to help. So if you set the goals and you find that you're not achieving those goals, then you need somebody to help you because you're not doing it right. I mean,
if you want that book bundle and lead sheet that he's talking about, you go to whitneynicely.com/boss, and it'll take you straight to the order page. And we send these 2 lead sheets, a button, and 2 books. So whitneynicely.com/boss. That's not the ClickFunnels site, but that's the one that I know works. All right, last question. I've got a meeting at 2 that we've got to go to. I had 2 people send me a message that said, hey, Whit, I'd like to buy your program. Where is the link? The link is hidden, my dears. And we have a very nice announcement. You want to make it later today or tomorrow?
That's up to you.
We have some exciting news coming out about the program. And we haven't decided when we're going to let everybody know about it, but it's going to be within the next week. So y'all be looking out. The group link is not active right now. The one-on-one link is active if you want to start a one-on-one program with me, but the group link is not active right now, and we will let you know as soon as it is ready. You have anything to add?
No, not really. Hey, good comments here. I don't know if everybody's on is getting this. Karina, you sent one that absolutely, I wanted to jump out of my seat when I read this. And Karina says, if the non-refundable deposit is too small or you give some of it back, the commitment is weak. And when I read that, it set my soul on fire because I don't think we could have verbalized that any better.
Yeah.
And that's something, obviously we see this. Karina, obviously you've got experience doing this. These are things that you get over time. Comments like that where those are things that you build over time. And Karina, it's obvious that, you've learned that. And, those are the types of things that Whitney and I try to focus on all the time. So it's, we're past 2. I'm going to join her for the other meeting. Hope everybody has a good afternoon. Again, set the goals, stick to them. If you're not achieving the goals, ask for help. That's what we're here for. Have a good afternoon.